It's 1997, and after successfully reinventing the iconic comic book hero Batman for a new generation, director Tim Burton and producer John Peters team up again, this time their target being Superman, in a new big screen adventure, one based on the highly publicized Death of Superman storyline, which had gained headlines in 1992, killing off Superman. Nicolas Cage has been tapped for the leading role, with Burton to direct, and writer-director Kevin Smith has been hired to write the screenplay. Hot off the success of Clerks and Mallrats, Smith was chosen in part due to his comic book street cred, and seemed like the perfect writer to bring Superman back to the big screen. Smith was later removed from the production, and the script going through massive changes, before eventually the entire production was soon abandoned. So, what did we miss out on? Let's find out. The script is titled Superman Lives. It's dated 27th March 1997. The script begins with an alien spacecraft traveling through outer space. On board are humanoid aliens dressed in uniforms. They see an asteroid, which transforms into a spacecraft called the Skull Ship. The Skull Ship grabs the alien craft, and on board the Skull Ship, a small robot implants a cable in a malformed head. The head grows a body, then arms and legs, eventually turning into Brainiac, a green-skinned, metallic humanoid. The small robot, which is called Elron, mentions pulling energy from the alien spacecraft to give Brainiac his new form. On board the alien spacecraft, Brainiac enters, then makes quick work of the aliens, plunging tendrils into their chests and absorbing their life force. The Skull Ship unravels from the other craft and heads into the void. Elron hands Brainiac something he found on board the other craft, a Thanagarian snare beast, a spider-like creature in a small containment jar. A signal broadcast from Earth, featuring Lex Luthor, appears on a screen. Luthor welcomes any life form receiving the signal to Earth to discuss what they know about a certain visitor of Kryptonian descent. Brainiac tells Elron to set course for Earth. We cut to a television studio where Lex Luthor himself is being interviewed by a telejournalist. Luthor questions the good that Superman represents. Luthor proposes to outlaw Superman from Metropolis. Lois Lane is also being interviewed. She makes a case against outlawing Superman, calling it a witch hunt, then throws a series of punches at Luthor to end the interview. We cut to a Metropolis street where Governor Caitlin Bree is speaking to the waiting press. Suddenly, there is an explosion across the street, and a gang of thugs, being led by supervillain Deadshot, emerge. Deadshot, clad in silver and red, and armed with wrist revolvers, easily subdues the governor's security. He attempts to kidnap the governor. Suddenly, a sonic boom fills the air. It's Superman, dressed 90s style. Thugs fire their machine guns at Superman, but the bullets just bounce right off his chest. Meanwhile, back on the Skull Ship, Brainiac and Elron watch Superman battle the thugs on a view screen. Brainiac realizes Superman is the Kryptonian he's been looking for. Back on the street, and Superman's eyes glow red. Heat beams from his eyes hit the thugs' machine guns, causing them to drop their weapons. Deadshot fires a bullet at the governor, which Superman stops using his super speed, then knocks Deadshot out. The governor thanks Superman. Inside the LexCorp building, Lex Luthor exits a limo and mutters that 6 months of planning was all for nothing, and with the governor out of the way, he could have taken control of the city away from that alien. Luthor enters an elevator. The hatch at the top of the elevator is ripped off. Superman appears, dragging Luthor out. Superman says he has evidence that links Luthor to the attempted kidnapping of the governor. Luthor says the evidence has self-destructed. Superman realizes this is true. He threatens to take off Luthor's head with the moving elevator, then says, "You're hardly worth the effort," and leaves. At the Daily Planet, Lois Lane is working late. Superman visits her, and after some conversation, we reveal Lois knows that Clark Kent is Superman. The two head out to eat somewhere monumental. At Lex's office, Brainiac and Elron appear. Brainiac offers to help stop Superman. Luthor says it won't be easy, as Superman is invulnerable, powered by the light of the sun. Brainiac comes up with an idea. He describes a plan which involves augmenting Luthor's orbiting space station solar conductor with Brainiac's own technology. Luthor agrees. So at Mount Rushmore, Clark and Lois are having dinner around a campfire. Clark wonders what life would have been like if his home planet hadn't exploded, if he hadn't shown up on Earth and gotten these powers. Meanwhile, in the Skull ship orbiting Earth, Brainiac says, launch the hybrid technology, and lasers create a massive net that begins to slowly prevent sunlight from passing through. Back at Mount Rushmore, the conversation turns to their relationship. Lois gives a heartfelt speech. She says that and doesn't feel like he belongs to her, that he belongs to the world. There's nothing more that she'd want than to share a life with him, but she won't settle for a half-life. Just then, the moment is interrupted. Clark says a plane is in trouble over Paraguay and has to leave. On the Skull ship, Brainiac tells Elron that their search for the Eradicator is nearly over. Jor-El would not have sent his son to Earth without it, and absorbing its energy will finally be enough to make Brainiac a god. The next day, we are in the Daily Planet building. The building is hit by what seems to be an earthquake, and there's a report of an explosion in the sewer beneath Metropolis Park. Clark changes into his Superman outfit and investigates. As he lands, he finds a crater and is pulled underground by two grey, meaty paws into a sewer tunnel, where he finds Doomsday, a ferocious and grey humanoid monster with leather skin. The two fight along an epic battle, which spills out across the city. Above, the sun is eclipsed and disappears, plunging the city into the darkness of moonlight. Superman, weakened by the lack of sunlight, begins to lose the fight against Doomsday. We cut to the Antarctic Circle, where in a canyon we find the Fortress of Solitude. Inside the building, we find the rocket that brought Superman to Earth. It pulses. A screen forms, showing an S insignia. The rocket then transforms, morphing from a rocket into a humanoid body. Back in Metropolis, the fight between Doomsday and Superman is nearing its end. The pair throw their last punches. Both fall to the ground, defeated. Back at the Fortress of Solitude, the rocket finishes transforming into the human-looking Eradicator. He stands erect, moves to a nearby computer, and hooks into it. Back in a Metropolis street, Lois finds the fallen Man of Steel. Lois tells Superman that he did it. The monster was defeated. Suddenly, Superman goes limp. Superman is dead. A horse-drawn carriage carries Superman's casket through the dark streets of Metropolis, past huge crowds. Pallbearers then carry the casket to a monument, a bronze replica of Superman in his up, and away stance. Batman appears on a big screen TV. He gives his condolences. Lex Luthor appears and says that he and Superman had been working together to prepare the world for its introduction to more extraterrestrials. He then introduces Brainiac to the crowd. Brainiac says he was a friend of Superman's. Brainiac tells the crowd he has blanketed Earth in a darkness to protect it from approaching hordes. At the Fortress of Solitude, the Eradicator finishes configuring a computer. We cut to the inside of Superman's casket. The S on Superman's chest starts to glow as Superman's body teleports. In Superman's dreams, he sees his father Jor-El, who reveals that he created the Eradicator as a free-form computer. The Eradicator found out that Brainiac had been destabilizing the core of planet Krypton and had been siphoning off the planet's energy. Brainiac wanted the energy to create a body for himself. Before Krypton's destruction, Brainiac had departed on a craft that he had constructed. Superman wakes from his dream and finds himself in the Fortress of Solitude. He meets the Eradicator, programmed to lie dormant until Superman's vital signs waned. He also says Brainiac wants the Eradicator's perpetual battery. Superman leaps as if to take off, but falls to the ground. He realizes to his horror that he doesn't have his powers. The Eradicator says that they need to get away from the shadowed Earth and get closer to the sun. Brainiac arrives at the Fortress of Solitude with an escort of soldiers. The general in charge says they always knew where the fortress was, but kept it a secret. Two polar bear statues at the entrance come to life and attack. Brainiac wrestles one to the ground, and the other flees. Inside, the fortress is deserted. Brainiac finds evidence that the Eradicator was there. He also shows signs of growing weak. They must find the Eradicator quickly. A two-man ship rockets through space. Inside is Superman and the Eradicator. Pilot their craft towards the giant object, blocking out the sun. The Eradicator begins hacking into the object and destroying it. Suddenly, their craft suffers a malfunction and begins to plummet back down to Earth. On the Skull ship, an alarm goes off. Elrond says something is descending towards Earth that doesn't match any known terrestrial craft. Brainiac realizes this is the Eradicator. The craft featuring Superman and the Eradicator pull up at the last second, avoiding a violent impact with Earth. A still powerless Superman attempts to save some people from a burning apartment building. The Eradicator sees how much the people of Earth mean to Superman and transforms into a suit of armor for Superman to wear. Superman uses this suit to save the tenants of the building. This eventually leads to a final showdown between Superman and Brainiac, in which Brainiac grows the Thanagorian snare beast to monstrous size, and then possesses the giant creature, and two of them do battle. So that was Superman Lives by Kevin Smith. Positives of the script. The script captures the vibe of what a Superman movie should be. There were a few scenes early on. There's a scene where Lois beats up Lex Luthor, and then there's a scene where Superman threads Lex Luthor in an elevator shaft, which I thought was a bit weird, a little out of character. But apart from that, I mean, the rest of the script was true to the characters, and you could tell this Kevin Smith knows his stuff. And the stuff between Clark and Lois was well done. There's a goofy charm to the Clark Kent scenes, which was good and worked well. And the script is also funny without being overly quippy. There's also sincerity to it, and the scene at Mount Rushmore was a highlight. So the action scenes were surprisingly good. It's a 1990s Kevin Smith script. Going into this, I was worried that most of the script would be sex jokes or whatever, but would be just a lot of dialogue. But the action scenes ended up being way better than I expected. The dead shot scene, it's just classic Superman. The Doomsday Superman fight was really good. It was suitably epic. And the bit in the end with the final words between Lois and Superman was really well done and heartbreaking. Negatives of the script. The script has this annoying problem where it will cut away from something interesting to show us something not as interesting. So something will be happening, then we'll cut to something completely different and just kill the mood. For example, the scene between Lois and Clark on Mount Rushmore. We go from a scene where the two are talking about the relationship, and then we intercut this with a solar conductor being taken over by Brainiac in outer space. It just doesn't make any sense to be cutting back and forth, and it just kind of kills the mood of the Clark and Lois scene. Also, during the Superman and Doomsday fight, we're in the middle of this epic battle, and then we cut to Antarctica, to the frozen tundra, and we find this canyon, and then the Fortress of Solitude. Then we find polar bear statues. Then we find a rocket inside. Then the rocket starts to glow. Then we cut back to Metropolis, and the fight continues. So we're in the middle of this frenetic battle, and then we're just cutting to frozen tundra. It's one of those things where it's just like, just wait until the scene is over, and the fight's over, and then, show us stuff going on elsewhere. For a movie that was meant to be about the death of Superman, his actual death feels underwhelming. This is meant to be the death of Superman, but we don't really get a sense of what that really means. We get the funeral procession, But then the script kind of glosses over his death and its impacts, and we don't really dwell on it for long enough. The original comic book storyline was broken up into 3 arcs. First was about Superman's fight with Doomsday and his death. And then the second was about his fellow superheroes mourning his death. And then the third was about Superman's resurrection. So a third of the original story was dedicated to exploring a world without Superman. But the script, we get about 5 minutes. There's a lot there that we didn't really explore. Also, the idea of a powerless Superman without his powers, feels like it kind of also doesn't really get explored. I was hoping for more scenes with Superman interacting with people. Like a scene where someone is being robbed and then Superman tries to help, but he ends up getting beaten up. Then we can, kind of explore how that makes Superman feel and what that means to him. So the question is it a movie? I liked the first half of the script. I thought it was really good. But then we get into the second half, and I feel like the second half is a disappointment. Overall, it's a fun, half-baked adaptation of the death of Superman. So is this script a movie? No, but could it be with a few more drafts to kind of punch up the second half? Probably yes. But is this script a movie? No. So that was Kevin Smith's Superman Lives, and I will see you next time.